Hey everyone, just a few quick things before we get started. Don't forget to sign the attendance sheet. It's just real simple. Just ask you 2 questions. Kind of looks like this. But that's pretty much it. Please enjoy. Hope you all learned something. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be going over switch statements. If you have any questions about this or anything else, please come stop by my office hours or up here. Shoot me an email. Ask to Zoom, go on Discord, message me on Discord, like all good stuff. Okay, so let's begin. The first question I have is a switch statement is very similar to a blank statement. Alright, and so the answer for this one is going to be an if. A switch is very similar to an if statement because it can have different cases just like an if statement. Let's fix this to an and. Alright. Alright, and this next question I have is, what does a switch statement do? So, a switch statement lets the variable or value determine where the program will branch. And this may sound confusing right now, but as we get a little further down in the worksheet, you'll be able to see what I mean. Okay, the next question I have is, there are different blank within an if statement, within a switch statement. So, the answer for this one would be cases. We have different cases within a switch statement that allow you to choose between different paths. Okay? So this question is, do we need brackets for a switch statement? The answer is yes, we do need brackets. But the next question, the same part of it, that says, do we need brackets for the cases inside the if statement? And the answer to this will be no. So yes for brackets on the whole switch statement, but no for brackets around each individual case. And you'll see at this bottom here when we write a full switch about what I'm talking about. In addition to different cases, you can also have a blank within a switch. So this one's going to be a default case. So instead of so you have a bunch of different cases that you can set, but if you can have a default case in case it doesn't match any of your predefined cases. So the next question I have is write a case. Okay. So let's pretend we're using numbers. We can just do case, say 5, colon, and then you can have it C out whatever you want. Or you can have it do whatever you want. So we'll just put some code, right? And then after that, you need a break with a semicolon. Okay, and so what this is say is, when your number is equal to 5, it's going to do whatever this code is, and then it breaks. And this break is very important. So what happens if there is no break within a case? And when could that be helpful? So if there's no break within a case, then it will fall through the cases. So let's say this was your first case and you didn't have a break. Every case below that will be run as well. And that can be helpful when you want to stack the different outcomes. So if you wanted, in the first case, let's say you wanted everything to happen and exclude with a specific one, but in the next case you didn't want the specific one that you had in the first case to happen, but you wanted the rest of them to happen. So it will happen as they fall through, if that makes sense. Alright, so the next one I have is write a full switch statement. So we have switch, switch, open parentheses, your variable, open brackets. So here's where you need the brackets for the whole thing. You have the different cases. I personally like to tab mine over, but you can do whatever you want. So let's say we have case 1, and then you can, write some code, and then break. Then we can have case 2, colon, some code, and then break, and let's say you want a default, so default just like that. And so, like I said, if there's no break and case 1 tested valid, this would run, and the default would run. If case 2 tested valid, then this would run and this would run. But since there are breaks, it just runs case 1 or it just runs case 2, and then default, there's nothing beneath it, so it doesn't matter. Okay, and you will need a semicolon after whatever code you decide to choose there, but since it's just a comment, I decided to put anything there. But yeah, you will need a semicolon for that. But that's about it. I don't have any coding practice for this specific, for switches. It's actually going to be in conjunction with the next video, which is going to be on functions. So it'll be a switch functions coding practice in the next video. But thank you all for watching. Okay, and so in this video, we're going to be going over nested loops. This is actually, it was really short to make a thing for nested loops, so I'm just putting it at the end of this switch statement video as well. So it's going to be a combined video, but sorry it's not all on one page. I realized that after that nested loops was pretty short. Yeah, office hours appear though, like normal. But let's get into it. So what is a nested loop? So now you may have heard the word nested before, right? With nested if statements, and the nested loops are going to be the same principle. So a nested loop is a loop within another loop, right? Okay. And so you can write one kind of like this. So let's say we have 4. They're typically written with for loops, but you can use whatever you want. For int I is equal to 0, let's just say, we'll just do expression. And then you start your second for loop. Usually people use J for the second one. And yeah, just make sure you have your brackets. Okay. And this can be very useful when doing certain types of things, like you'll see later. Okay, so the next question I have is how do nested loops work? So going back to this one, you can see it's 4 int I is equal to 0, the expression which you'd have like I is less than x or something, and then I plus plus. So this runs, and then you hit this other for loop. So it's going to run fully to this, like let's say it ran 10 times. It would run 10 times within one of these outer for loops. And then once that finished, the inner for loop finished, it'd finish the outer for loop, and then it'd go again, and it'd run the whole inner for loop all over again. So yeah, this inner one runs multiple times, while the outer one only runs once. So you can put the inner loops run completely for each outer loop iteration. Okay. And this last question I have is how can we find the number of iterations in a nested for loop? So this can also be done with a while loop if you know how many iterations, but for a for loop, right, so let's say this outer one is going to run 10 times, and this inner one runs 5 times whenever it starts. So you can just take the 10 and multiply it times the 5 to get 50. So outer loop iterations times the inner loop iterations. Alright, and so next up is the code. I'm going to pull up online GDB and set that up. Okay, so now I have online GDB pulled up, so let's get started. So it says write a program that asks the user for 2 integers between 3 and 13 to use for the rows and columns of a rectangle. The program should display the rectangle of the given size using X. So this is just like the code for the while loop video and the for loop video, except instead the user gives both the numbers. So you don't know how many iterations each loop, how big the width is, right? You can't put 5 stars in one cout statement. So let's first start by taking the input. I'll just do it rows. Okay, set your variables, cout, enter in 2 integers between 13 and 13, 3 and 13, to use for the row of a rectangle, rows and columns of a rectangle, in line. Alright, so this is going to be inclusive, but I'm not going to type it because it's our program. We know what it is. If you were sending it to someone else, still, you might want to put it in. Whatever. Cin, and so we'll do arrows point towards the variables, right? We'll do rows, and then we'll also do columns in the same line. Okay? Oh, not a period. Sorry. Semicolon. And so this will work as long as they have a space between the numbers, or one's number is entered first and the other number. Alright. And so now we get to start the drawing of the x's. And so just like the first time, we'll use loop. And so I'm going to pick a for loop just because we know the number of iterations. So for and I is equal to 0, while I is less than. So you have to think about this. When you're putting out an output, would the computer do each column first, or would it do each row first? And if you think about it, it goes columns, right? Because it prints out a whole line and then it goes down a line. And so because it's putting out the columns, you need that columns in the middle, in the inner loop. So for the outer loop, we'll do rows and then I++. And then I kind of gave it away, but we are going to need a nested for loop if you didn't know by the video title. And j is equal to 0. J is less than columns. J++. Alright, and then now we can cout just a regular X. And so this is going to be important, right? The other time we put inline, but because this is doing the columns for us, we need to just put a semicolon so that the columns put next to each other. And then to take care of the rows, we need to do an inline after the inner loop, but before the outer loop ends. So we just do cout inline. And so let's test this to see if this works. Should be done. Alright, so let's start with a 3x3. Good, that's great. Well, I probably shouldn't have picked 3x3 because then we don't know which one was the columns and which one was the rows, so I'm going to try it again. But like you can see, I pressed 3, then hit enter, then I did another 3. But this time, I can do 3, let's do 3 space 5. And so you can see that the columns is going to be the 5 and the rows are going to be the 3, which is exactly how we want it. And you can do big numbers too, like a 8 by 13, and you get that giant thing. But yeah, so double for loops, one of their uses, they're really useful like to output shapes to the terminal, right? You can get this in a square, a circle will be kind of hard, but like a pyramid or something. They're useful when outputting like shapes like this to the terminal, made up of like certain characters. But yeah, that's it for this video. If you'll have any more questions about it, then come see me. My office hours. We'll also probably be going over this double for loops a lot in the practice lab, so feel free to stop by there. Thank you all for making it all the way through this video. Here's a little way of saying thank you.